Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're talking about reparations. Reparations in the United States. It looks like they're going to pass in some states. So I just wanted to get my 2 cents out there. So basically, the argument goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was slavery in the United States. And slavery is bad. Slavery is wrong. The slaves worked very, very hard for their masters. But the slaves didn't get the fruit of their labor. The fruit of the slaves' labor went to their masters. And this is not fair. These slaves worked very hard. Sometimes they worked themselves to death. And they didn't get anything for it. And so today, what we're going to do, the slave masters are gone. The slaves themselves are gone. So today what we're going to do is we are going to go to the progeny of these slave owners. We are going to take money from them, and we are going to give it to the progeny of these slaves. This will be payback. These slaves worked very hard. Now they're going to get some of the fruit of their labor. It won't go to them because they're dead, but it will go to their progeny. Okay? We all on the same page? All right. That's the theory. That's why this is passing. This is why it's probably going to pass all over the place. This theory is complete bullshit. This is about hating white people. It's as simple as that. This is about hating white people and making lots and lots and lots of money off of that hate. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'll prove it to you right now. You don't have to stand up from your chair. You don't have to go Google anything. You don't have to do anything. Just have to sit there and listen. You see, back when slavery was legal in the United States, there were black people who owned slaves. Well, those black people treated their slaves better. Okay. 30 seconds ago, you said everyone should be treated the same regardless of race or ethnicity. I say there were black people who owned slaves. Now you're standing here telling me, well, it's not a crime when the black guys do it. Well, they'll have a different standard. They should be treated differently. Why? Because they're black. So which is it? Which one are you going to do? Should everyone be treated the same regardless of race or ethnicity? Or should everyone be treated differently because of their race and ethnicity? Well, you're going to do both. You're going to reserve that power. You and your friends will stand here and tell us. It'll be on a case-by-case basis. And you'll make the decision whenever. I give you a new fact pattern. Hey, you know what? We're going to change standards. How about this fact pattern? Well, we're going to go back to the original. Well, what about that fact pattern of it? Well, we're going to change it again. Isn't that nice of you? A white man do this? White man sit here and say, hey, you know what? I want to use a different fact pattern. Hulk Hogan. We're mad at him. He used racial slurs. Hulk Hogan stand here and say, hey, you know what? I hear Dave Chappelle and Snoop Dogg saying that kind of stuff all the time. And you laugh. You give them awards. You give them accolades. I want to be treated the same way you treat those guys. I don't want to be treated differently because I'm white. And you're saying, no. You are white. Therefore, you will be treated differently. So how come? Oh, well, you have to be that thing in order to slur it. You can only use black slurs if you are black. You can only use Latino slurs if you are Latino. Really? Black guy can't call me a cracker? Or a redneck? Or a hillbilly? Or a racist? Or a fascist? Or a Nazi? I'm a white-skinned man. I'm half German. And you're calling me a Nazi. Is that the only thing you think of when you think of German people? You only think of Nazis? So you can go out there and you can do all of your obnoxious rap music where you're calling me all kinds of filthy names. How come you can do that? Why can you do that? Well, we have free speech and free expression. So can a white man rap? Can I go make a rap album? No, you can't do that. That's cultural appropriation. What about my free speech? What about my free expression? No, you can't do that. You can't culturally appropriate things. So how come you can't? Well, I just told you, we have free speech. We have free expression. Free speech and free expression? Those things were first postulated by German philosophers. How come you can steal my culture, but I can't steal yours? Well, white people don't have a culture. I didn't say white. I said German. Now, I repeat my question. How come you can steal my culture? You admitted I had a culture the minute you called me a Nazi. White people can't appropriate cultures. How come you can? And why do you want to be treated differently? Stand here telling me, oh, it's okay when we do it. Why? Well, because we're black. So you want to be treated differently. But that undermines your argument. Why aren't you sitting around demanding, hey, you know what? If white people can't do it, neither should we. How come black guys aren't on the street? Hey, you know what? I looked into my background and I learned that I found that my family owned slaves. If white men are going to pay it, so should I. Notice you're not doing that. We're off track. The point is, there were black people in the South who owned slaves during the time of slavery. Hey, do you think they talk about that over the Smithsonian? Think when you go into the Smithsonian, you think when you go to that hall of American slavery and you walk in, the people at the Smithsonian come running over and say, hey, you know what? There were black people who owned slaves. They owned lots and lots and lots of slaves. And they treated their slaves really, really bad. Do they talk about that? No. I don't think they do. I'm guessing if I go into the Smithsonian and their hall of slavery, if they talk about it at all, it sounds like, well, there was a couple black guys and they owned slaves, but it wasn't that big a deal. Now come over here and we'll tell you about all the bad things white people did. What's that Facebook meme? Oh, well, you know, if your history makes you feel empowered, then it's not history, it's propaganda. What, you're only talking about me? I'm supposed to feel bad about my history. You're supposed to feel empowered by yours. We're supposed to be treated differently, huh? Why? Because I'm white? That why? Oh, okay, so we're going to go tear down statues. We're going to tear down the statues of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Why? They were slave-owning white men, right? These are the founders of our country. No. They shouldn't be remembered for that. They should be remembered as slave-owning white men, and that's why we're tearing down their statues. That's why we're renaming places after them. Because we don't support that. We shouldn't support that. We should never support that. And while we're tearing down these statues, we're going to invite Barack Obama to come by. He's going to make a speech. Isn't that great? The first black president of the United States is going to show up, and he's going to make a speech talking about how terrible these people were because they owned slaves. They benefited from slavery. If George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were running for president today, we sure as hell wouldn't vote for them. Meanwhile, Barack Obama, according to the book Dreams of My Father, his family owned slaves in Kenya. Black African slaves. Young Barack, in elementary school, over summer break, going to Kenya to visit his family, could have shaken hands with the slaves his family owned. Nobody in the United States could say that. The slaves were dead by the time we got her. Barack Obama is a direct beneficiary of slavery. See, the people in the United States are indirect beneficiaries. You have to go back a ways. Barack Obama, meanwhile, he's a direct beneficiary. So now you know this. Would you vote for Barack Obama again? Of course you would. He's black. You're going to treat him differently because he's black. But do you realize you're undermining your own argument? I thought this was about racial equality. I thought this was about treating everybody the same. Nope. Not when it comes to this. Hey, you know what? I'll entertain your theory. Okay, so once upon a time there was slavery in the United States. And there were black people who owned slaves. But they treated their slaves better. Not good enough to let them go, but better. So now we have black African slave owners. We have black African slaves. Ergo, same race, same ethnicity. Well, actually, the black slave owners, a lot of them saw themselves as French, but were hair splitting. The point is, they were the same race as their slaves. So therefore, they treated their slaves better, right? That's a racist theory. You're coming to that conclusion based on the race of the people involved. But you know what? I said I'd entertain it, so I will. So the black African slaves were treated better by their black African masters. Okay? Then over here, we have white slave owners. And we have black African slaves. Different race. Different ethnicity. Therefore, they had to have treated their slaves terrible, right? It was really, really bad. It was a crime against humanity. It was civil and human rights violations, and it was awful. And that's why we want reparations today, because of this terrible treatment. White people owe black people, right? Because of all that terrible stuff that happened. Okay? All right. Next question. Native American slave owners, black African slaves. Different race, different ethnicity. Had to have treated their slaves something terrible, right? So how come you're not going after the native tribes? Why aren't you demanding that the tribes pay? How come you're not tearing down statues of Native American leaders? Why aren't you demanding places named after Native Americans be renamed to wipe out the stain of slavery? Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge. It's French. It means red stick. Red stick were a branch of the Creeks. The Creeks lived in the American South. They owned slaves. They fought for the Confederacy during the Civil War. Doesn't that piss you off? Doesn't that make you mad? Why aren't you going after the Creeks? Did you know that after the Civil War, the last Southern army to surrender was a Native American army? The white men were beat. Hey, you know what? We'll give up our slaves. Native Americans? No way. We're keeping them. So how come you're not mad? How come you're not going after them? Why isn't your reparations targeting them? Why are you treating them differently? And how come Native Americans aren't out there marching around saying, hey, you know what? We want to be treated just like white people. White people have to pay reparations, so should we. I'm not seeing that. Isn't that interesting? I told you, this is about hating white people and making lots and lots and lots of money off of that hate. You're going to vote for Barack Obama if Barack Obama runs again, and you're not going to go after the Native Americans, even though the Native Americans had slaves. This isn't supposed to be how it works in the United States. We have a system of jurisprudence. If I've done you dirty, you need to take me to court. But you can't do that in this case. So you walk into court and you say, he's guilty. Well, what'd he do? Well, he benefited from slavery. So he owned you as a slave? No. We think somebody in his past did, though. So he didn't hurt you. Well, technically, there's no damage to me either. He hurt somebody I was related to a long time ago. So there's no damage here. Do you have any witnesses? No. These people are all dead. Do you have any evidence that this guy hurt you? Well, no. There's no evidence that he hurt me. He has never owned a slave. You've never been a slave. Not in the United States. Well, we're going to have to throw this case out. There's no damage here. That's how it's supposed to work. But what you're doing here, since you can't get me in court, you're going to go to the legislature. You're going to say, hey, you know what? Don't you feel terrible? You benefited from slavery. You need to pay us. And the legislature is saying, okay, yeah, you're right. We're going to set up a class of people who are guilty. Are red men going to be in this? No. Are black men going to be in this? No. So the law is going to only target white people? Yeah. Well, it's kind of a racist law. I mean, it's hard to argue it's not. That's a violation of the 14th Amendment. You're not supposed to make laws based on race. But you're ignoring all the other laws, so why wouldn't you ignore this one? So you're going to make me and other white people go to work, and we're going to pay you. And one morning, you'll wake up and you'll decide, hey, you know what? They paid me enough. They don't have to pay anymore. Now we can stop. Isn't that nice of you? You'll decide. Once you think you have enough, then you'll decide, hey, you know what? Now we can stop. This is called a bill of attainder. It's unconstitutional. What's a bill of attainder? A bill of attainder is where the legislature tries to act like a court. They figure out a bunch of people who are guilty, and then they assign a punishment. That's called a bill of attainder. It's unconstitutional. But you're ignoring all these other rules, so I wouldn't expect you to follow this one either. This is an ex post facto law. What's an ex post facto law? Ex post facto law. As of 250 years ago, it is now illegal. So we go back through history and we find all the guys who did it 250 years ago onward, and we find them all guilty. Another way to put it, if you were smoking pot last week and the legislature comes out and says, hey, you know what? As of a month ago, anybody found smoking pot is subject to a fine. Well, we saw you smoking pot last week, so now that's an ex post facto law. It's unconstitutional. You can't do it. Back when slavery was legal in the United States, I wasn't even alive. There was nothing I could do to stop it. There was nothing I could do to stop the events. So now I'm being held liable for something I had absolutely no control over at all. That's an ex post facto law. But you ignore all the other rules. So why wouldn't you ignore this one? I told you, this is about hating white people and making lots and lots and lots of money off of that hate. So now you've got your little bill of attainder. It's unconstitutional. But so what? You've got your reparations. So now I'm going to wake up every morning. I will go to work. Doesn't matter if I'm the president of CEO of Google or if I'm a fry cook at McDonald's. I will be paying you. I will go to work. Every day I will go to work. And before my paycheck even touches my hand, the tax man's going to show up. He's going to take some of that money and he's going to give it to those black guys over there who did absolutely nothing to get it. And it will follow me. Doesn't matter. I can change jobs no matter what I'm doing. The tax man's going to show up. He is going to take the fruits of my labor and he is going to give it to that black guy over there who didn't do anything to get it. And you know what that makes me? I'm working against my will. You are taking the fruits of my labor. That makes me a slave.